Hey, everybody, good morning and welcome back. Thanks for joining us on another episode of 80s Wrestling the Podcast. If you're joining us via that 80s Wrestling the Podcast YouTube page, jump into the comments section and hit that connect button to get on the air with us. Don't forget to follow the page. Hit the like and hit that bell to stay up to date on all that good stuff. I'm having a little technical difficulty. I can't hear anything in my headphones. Shout out to Edwin in the comments to tell me to mute the WrestleMania song, although that's a fantastic song. I'm going to square up my audio here. Hopefully you guys can hear me because, look, there was a time when professional wrestling wasn't just something you watched on Saturday mornings or down at your local arena. It was everywhere. It was on MTV, Saturday morning cartoons. We had action figures, magazine, lunchboxes, and even record stores were carrying professional wrestling stuff. Wrestling had become part of the pop culture, and it all seemed to happen almost overnight. In this episode, we're looking back at the Rock and Wrestling Connection, that groundbreaking partnership between the WWF and MTV, the wrestling album, the cartoons, the merchandise, and how it all helped launch wrestling into the mainstream like never, ever before. So whether you lived through it or you're discovering it for the first time, this was truly a special era that changed the business forever. So grab a bowl of cereal, turn up the volume, and let's head back to the mid-'80s for one of the greatest crossovers in wrestling history. All that and more on this live episode of 80s Wrestling the Podcast. My name's Jumpin' Jay, and as always, I'm joined by the Con Father, Mr. Tommy Fierro. Tommy, hopefully you can hear me. What's going on today, brother?
Good morning. Not only can I hear you, but I heard the WrestleMania song like Edwin did as well. And I'll be honest with you, I was jamming to it.
It's a good
I
song.
I thought it was just you had it on hold for me, waiting to get onto the show to introduce me. So I thought I was just listening to that song until you cued me in. But I will say that is a very, very catchy song. So I think that should be the new theme song of 80s Wrestling the Podcast. I really do.
I wonder if we could get away with that. I wonder if the YouTube would pull our rights for that. But I lost all connection to that audio. I didn't realize it was even playing. So I appreciate Edwin letting me know. And it is a good song, though. Hey, you're fresh off your Legends of Wrestling night for ISPW. Talk to me about it, brother. Everything online looks like it was absolutely an amazing show. Give me the first person point of view.
Oh man, thank you. And yes, it was awesome. And I posted pictures of the crowd on ISPW Wrestling's social media, and also some videos as well, some highlight videos of some of the matches. It was incredible. Wildwood is for New Jersey. It's like the tourist area. And even though we have Atlantic City, which people go to and gamble and all that stuff. Families that live in New Jersey, when they go on New Jersey, they usually go to the Jersey Shore, and it's not. While it's like the TV show a little bit, it's a lot different also. But I would say Wildwood is probably the most tourist attraction of the Jersey Shore. So every week there's a different audience down there. And when I was a kid, my grandparents, every summer would take me on vacation to Wildwood. And, as I'm older now, and WWF was down there always when we went down there. And I always thought it was so cool how we picked the same week that, WWF was there. But now as an adult looking back, I can obviously put two and two together and realize my grandparents planned their summer vacation around me seeing WWF down there, which was pretty cool. And then, and remember one year the main event was Hillbilly Jim against King Kong Bundy. And fast forward, 10 years later to 1998, and I'm running my own wrestling show. And that very same building in King Kong Bundy was in my main event. So it was like the most fullest circle moment I've ever experienced in wrestling. And I did, I did it down there for a couple summers, and they knocked down the old convention center and built a brand new one, which fits 8,000 people. And WWE came in, and because that's like was a hot spot for New Jersey, so WWE came in there and they started running it, and then they had an exclusive on it until the pandemic happened. And then obviously after the pandemic, they weren't touring the way they were, and now not either. They're just starting to bring back some live events now, but it's not like it used to be. So like WWE stopped going there, and after the first year I called, hey, I'm the promoter back from the '90s, and I want to get back in there. They said no. I called the following year, no. I tried back the third year, no. Finally, I was persistent every single year. I kept calling there, and after the third year, my persistency got me into the building. So I've been running the shows there for the last 3 years now, and it's special, man, because I grew up going there as a kid. I mean, this building is gigantic. If you see the videos on our social media, that they actually put up a wall. That's only half the convention center. So the other half is where the guys are changing that and coming out of. But that place fits 8,000 people. So it's a gigantic building. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. The staff there is incredible. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. And in the main event, we had a TLC match, and it was incredible. My guys worked really, really hard. The people were so into it, so much so that we have already booked another show for August the 20th, and hopefully I get some information over to Jay in the upcoming day or two to get the website all updated, ready to go. We're just waiting on Ticketmaster. When we run that building, we have to go through Ticketmaster, so that we're just waiting for them to release the tickets, and then as soon as we do, obviously we'll put the link on our website. But yes, we'll be back there on August 20th, and I'm excited, and I appreciate you asking about it. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. All the talk online is not only how great the show was, but how well it was promoted ahead of time. There's people talking about they saw posters for weeks and weeks in advance, and it built this anticipation, and then the show delivered. I got some pictures up. If you're following us on YouTube, you can see the crowd coming into the building. You can see the arena itself full of people.
Nice.
You can see Ted DiBiase standing in the center of the ring. And then one of the things that I was most excited about, it looks like we have new ISPW tag team champions, Mosh and
Yes.
Thrasher, the Headbangers, Tommy.
Yes. Jay, first of all, thank you for taking the time to put those pictures up on the screen. As you can see, that's only half the convention center right there. And it's massive just looking at that. And that fits 4,000. The side that the bleachers on where they took the picture from, obviously that side was pretty nearly empty. It looks like there's a lot of people there, but there's really not. But still, if you zoom in and start counting, that's a lot of people. And I'm really proud of the turnout we had, and I'm super excited to do it again on August 20th. Another cool thing, Jay, about this on August 20th, it's my father's birthday, and it's going to be extra special for me. Obviously, my father's no longer with us, and the date is his birthday. So I'm looking to go back down there and put on another banger, man. We just released the lineup last night. If you head over to ISW Wrestling social media pages, you'll see it on there. And again, the autographs and hopefully the tickets for the show should be up on iswwrestling.com the next day or two. And yeah, I'm excited for this topic. So I was down there all last week, and I thought that I was going to be able to be on last week's show, but I got dragged in a zillion different directions right before the show started. It worked out better though, right, Jay? Because you guys had Tony Atlas on for a half hour, was super cool. I listened to it; it was awesome. So I think that was a pretty good substitute for me having Tony on.
There's no substitute for the Con Father. But yeah, Tony Atlas came on at the end of the show, kind of a surprise guest that Toto Tom called in with, and he gave us his perspective on the wrestling business. And if I remember right, man, he retained, and he's still the ISPW Tri-State champion. So big night for the legends in Wildwood.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy if you think about it. In 2026, Tony Atlas and the Headbangers are both champions in my promotion.
Yeah, you listen, you're living out every kid's dream that when we played with action figures and we ran kind of our own fig fed, as people like to say, you're running it for real, man. And you get to play not only with legends, but you have some of the best upcoming young talent as well. And so I'm just so excited to keep seeing what ISPW puts out, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And a lot of people also ask, like, is this being streamed or where can I watch this? I think this is the first time I ever say this, But the main reason why I don't do that, why I don't do live streams, and I don't do, all this other stuff, is because 90% of my events are fundraiser events, right? So like the organization I'm partnering up with is, for them, the only way they make money is by selling the tickets and getting people in the building. So it goes against what we do. So like, why would someone want to, why would someone want to bring a family of four if times are a little tough and spend $100 when he's really the only one who wants to see it, and for $8.99 he can watch it in his house. So like, I don't want to take away from the fundraising aspect of it. That's why, and the main reason why, it's a different business plan what we have compared to what other people do. But that's the main reason why.
That makes perfect sense to me. And anyone listening, if you fly out to Wildwood, Tommy will sell you a ticket. If you want to
Let
see
me,
it,
let me tell
get
you
in the
something.
door.
Anyone that flies out and that listens to this show, anyone that flies out to that show gets free tickets.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Con Father has just reached out with a very generous offer. If you can hear my voice and if you can get to Wildwood, you got a free ticket to the next Wildwood show, ISPW. That's fantastic, Tommy.
The whole family. This is a worldwide offer.
And you can only get that offer here on 80s Wrestling, the
That's
podcast.
right.
That's very kind of you, Tommy. We did miss you last week, but I believe it
You
was the
use
rookie. What's that?
I would say use code Millionaire J.
Oh, don't. That'll get you kicked out for sure. I was gonna say we missed you last week, but I think it was the rookie Edwin that gave us an idea for a topic for this week. We're talking all about the
Love it.
rock and wrestling era, not just Hulk Hogan's rock and wrestling cartoon, but we're talking about the album, MTV, the whole thing. And before we dive into the phone calls, Tommy, you own the greatest wrestling memorabilia superstore in the world. And so I would love to know from your perspective, how hot is the merchandise still from this rock and wrestling connect? I mean, we had LJNs, ice cream bars, coloring books, stickers, magazines, lunch boxes, you name it, they had it. Is there anything that when you get it on the shelf, it's not hanging around long?
All of it. All of it.
All of it.
Anything from that golden era, from 85 to 91 or 92, as far as figures, original merchandise, poster, like anything that you saw in the catalogs of WWF magazine during that time, you can't keep it on the shelves. That's the stuff that goes. I mean, I have some current stuff in the store, but a lot of my stuff's like old school stuff, like from the 80s and 90s. But yeah, man, it's hot, and it only continues to get hotter, which is why and this is why this is a good topic to get into. And we'll get to the calls. I just want to throw my 2 cents in first before anyone else does on this topic, because I was excited to talk about it. Yes, you can't help but go back and think of your childhood, Jay. Right? Like, I remember as a kid, sitting on the floor in the living room and have a bowl of cereal or have a cold slice of pizza and watch Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, and it was pop culture, and it was hip and mainstream, and I think that this formula would 100% work in 2026. So I would call it Cody Rhodes' Rock and Wrestling. Or, and you do the same cartoon with the Hills and baby faces. Like, there's such, and especially now with social media and with, all these different platforms of how WWE, can generate money. Like, the Cody Rhodes' Rock and Wrestling can be a show for a different app. They have Tubi, they have all these different partnerships, Peacock, and then this can be another platform where they can partner up with a different group. And I just think that there's money there. I really, really do. I think that there's a ton of kids that watch, WWE. And I think that it would be a great way to possibly introduce new kids to start watching WWE. I definitely can see that formula working. I can see them bringing back the coloring books. I can see them bringing back all that stuff, because what's old is new again, and what worked in the past can work in the future if it was done the right way. And we've had this conversation in the past about different things as far as like bringing back, jobbers or enhancement talent, if you call them, or or managers or the talk shows. Like these are fun topics to have because I can totally see it being over and being huge in 2026. And I think this would be one of them. So I think this is a very underrated 80s topic. I'm glad it was picked today, Edwin. Good job. And I'm excited to hear what everyone thinks about it.
Yeah, you make a lot of sense, Tommy. Before we jump into the first caller, let me ask you this. How important do you think it was? So, The Rock and wrestling comes from the connection between the World Wrestling Federation and MTV. How important do you think that connection to MTV was for just launching wrestling into that
Oh,
mainstream?
it was crucial. It was, if it wasn't for MTV, there might have not have been a WrestleMania, and there might have not and if it wasn't for MTV, if there was a WrestleMania, if that was Vince's concept prior to getting involved with MTV, the MTV thing really threw it over the edge. Obviously, with them going on there and doing the war to settle the score, and Cyndi Lauper and being involved with it, Mr. T, obviously from the A Team. So like all that pop culture tied in with that really did the trick. And in WWE, real quick, just to go back to what I was saying. They're so pop culture right now, right? Like they're on ESPN. People are talking about it. On the regular news, people are talking about it. It now has a 24/7 radio show. And real quick, I want to talk about that real quick, and then we'll get into the calls. So obviously, everyone knows that David Greca is a friend of mine, and I'm an avid listener of Busted Open. I listen to it driving to work every day, and the parts I don't hear, I go back on their YouTube page and I listen to their videos while I'm driving. So I'm a big diehard Busted Open guy. Not only because of Dave, and Dave was at my store day one, the first day it opened. He was here, and he always till this day. And he told me when I talked to him the other day, he's still gonna give promotions and plugs and talk about the Wrestling Collector. And I can't begin to tell you how many people have come in this store about the store from Busted Open. So it sucked to see last week in X. Everyone on X is worse than any of them. Out of all the platforms, people talk the shit most on X. But like everyone just bashing LaGreca and calling him a sellout, and because obviously they're not going to be able to talk about AEW anymore. Probably different topics that they usually did. AEW obviously being the main one. People call him a sellout and all this stuff. Like I, they don't understand. If you're calling him a sellout, you have no clue about business. Because if you're a fan of Dave LaGreca, or if you're a fan of Busted Open, if you have two brain cells in your head, you can obviously tell that partnering with the biggest wrestling organization in the world, who just dropped a commercial for it on SmackDown last Friday, two commercials for it on Raw this Monday, and I'm sure the 4,000 subscribers that they lost that are diehard AEW fans, that had that got butt hurt. I'm sure that they have 50,000 new subscribers since this was announced, because now it's WWE nonstop talk 24 hours a day, and it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for WWE to want to get in bed with LaGreca, because he created this unbelievable platform on SiriusXM all by himself 17 years ago. And he started as Pro Wrestling Nation, and for the WWE to come to him and want to partner up and do something, man, it's a no-brainer. So if you're hating on Dave for bettering his life, bettering his family's life, and being a part of something that is going to be groundbreaking. They just had Triple H on yesterday. They had Charlotte Flair on this week. They had Seth Rollins on this week. Who else? They had someone else really big on there this week too. But like it's gonna be nonstop. Like you're driving in the car. If you just say you're coming home from somewhere and you can't catch Raw or SmackDown or NXT or one of the live events because you're traveling. A lot of people travel a lot, right? You can now listen to it 24 hours a day. You just turn on, you're in your car, you turn on, you can listen to Raw, you can listen to SmackDown, you can listen to the live events. They have Undertaker's podcast on there now, Cody Rhodes' podcast, Stephanie McMahon's podcast. I don't want to feel like I'm doing a commercial for them, but I'm just trying to say all this great content, all this great stuff now. It's and not just that, but the machine is behind it now. I think Raw does like 3-4 million views a week. You know how many more people are going to subscribe to SiriusXM because WWE is now a part of it? Man, like these people are so they don't get it. They don't get it. I just want to say congratulations again. I think it's unbelievable. And I think it's unbelievable for the WWE also to have a 24-hour, 7-day a week radio show now. And I'm excited about it.
I don't want to take credit for this idea, Tommy, but I promise you, when I was a kid, I used to say, because we used to listen to like baseball on the radio on car chips or the football game if we weren't home to watch it. I never understood why I couldn't listen to wrestling on the radio.
But
So it
how
may have
cool is
taken
that
40
now?
some
It's fucking
years.
cool.
It's awesome, man. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Imagine being on a road trip and you're listening to Monday Night Raw or SummerSlam. You're listening to it. I think it's going to be incredible.
And not just that too, like this weekend, 'cause I talked to Dave the other day, he's doing on Sirius XM the pre-show on Saturday and Sunday, an hour before they go live. So like now, like if you're driving to your friend's house to go watch the pay-per-view, you can listen to the pre-show live on in your car. It's really cool.
It is really cool. And what else is really cool is this Rock and Wrestling Connection. We got a lot of guys waiting on hold. And so we got to get onto the slam line because we're already 22 minutes past the hour. But when you call in, I'd love to hear like what's your memories of the rock and wrestling era. And I would love to know, like, do you remember the first piece of merchandise that you owned back in this time period? If you owned anything, stuff like that. We're going to jump into it, Tom. We're talking all about the Rock and Wrestling Connection, the cartoons, the albums, everything. And up first on the Wrestling Collector Slam line, it's time to fly out to the always sunny Chico, California. I almost said always Chico, sunny California. It's time for Babyface Brian. Brian, good morning, brother.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'll try to be concise, but I wanted to just say that yesterday would have been Captain Lou Albano's 93rd birthday, and he deserves a ton of credit for befriending Cyndi Lauper and kind of starting up this rock and wrestling connection. And with Cyndi Lauper, man, she's in the Mattel line now. She's a part of WWE. They just released a 3-pack of Mattel 6-inch figures with her and Captain Lou and Roddy Piper that you can special order with the tax and shipping. It ends up being about $95. But even more exciting is they just announced an LJN style figure for her. So that'll be early 2027. That'll be going up. It'll probably be going up for pre-order in a couple months. So you guys know I'm a big LJN guy, so I'm super excited about a Cyndi Lauper LJN joining the mix as well. And a week ago today is when the Brawl to End It All, the first show that they had on MTV, aired back in 1984. So it's been just over 42 years since they made their debut, with Wendy Richter defeating Fabulous Moolah on an MTV broadcast of the Brawl to End It All. So a timely episode with some anniversaries of Captain Lou's birthday yesterday and the Brawl to End It All a week ago. But some of my very first memories before I even became a fan, aside from seeing Rocky and Hulk Hogan, Rocky 3, were on the news. They actually had footage of Roddy Piper, kicking Cyndi Lauper in the head or pushing her head with his foot, and just the connection of wrestling with Cyndi Lauper. That was on like 5 o'clock news, and I remember seeing that and just thinking, what is this? So I mean, the Rock and Wrestling Connection just brought so many eyes to the table. And as far as merchandise, I watched the cartoon. I try to watch it now. It doesn't hold up, but it's still super cool to see the little live parts of the show, the little breaks where the real wrestlers come on the screen. And I love the caricatures of the cartoon characters themselves. But one of my first wrestling pieces of merchandise was Winston Toys did a line of erasers that were in the style of those Rock and Wrestling cartoons characters. So I would love to someday have, some of those, or have the Roddy Piper one. The one eraser that I had, and of course I never used it, I've still got it, is they made a Hulk Hogan LJN style Winston Toys eraser too. So I've got that one. I don't have the ones that are designed like the characters from Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, but I love those Winston toys. I love the idea of those Winston toys erasers, and I'm sure Tommy's seen them in the store from time to time. Recently, a company called Latuni even came out with an LJN size figure. It's hollow, but it's super cool. It's an Andre the Giant that's in that Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling style, and that's at bringhomealltheaction.com. I think it's $55 and about $10 with shipping or for shipping, but it's super cool that he's got one that's a spitting image of the Andre cartoon character from Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling.
So what do you think it is, Babyface Brian? My older son asked me, because as these new LJNs come out, I've been buying some of them. And so my oldest son asked me, Dad, why do you think they're coming out with these again? And my answer to him is always, because guys my age that grew up with it, that miss it, they know we're going to spend our money on it. But what do you think it is about these style of toys that they decided to bring them back and that they seem to be performing really well?
I'll give the credit to Matt Cardona and Brian Myers and their company, the major wrestling figures, because with the Big Rubber Guys figures, that really took off. And a couple years into it, I think it made a big enough mark where Mattel decided to jump back in. And so I think you're right. If I had to guess, I'd say 90 to 95% of the people buying them are guys in their 40s and 50s like us that had the old LJNs and like to collect. And so that's what I'm guessing is it's kind of like Professor Matt says, follow the money, and there's plenty of money there, I guess, to support. There's now 4 different companies that are building figures in this style, or about to. Another one just joined the mix this last week. So I'm happy to see it. Of course, I love it. And then and the music videos too back then. The Goonies Are Good Enough, and Girls Just Want to Have Fun, seeing Captain Lou, but the Goonies Are Good Enough. That was one of my favorites. A 2-part music video that had Roddy and Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov and Andre, and just so much fun seeing wrestling heroes in music videos back in the day also. So I know we got a lot of callers, and that's just a lot. It's just such an amazing time that really it just lent so much to the boom of pro wrestling, just that added influence of Cindy and MTV kind of bringing it all together for the masses.
It was a magical time for wrestling, and it gives you all the feels when you start looking back at the pictures of not only the cartoon characters, but the erasers that you were talking about. All of it is just, it hits the nostalgia button so hard. And so I'm glad we're talking about it this morning.
Definitely. And keep an eye out for those Winston Toys erasers, Tommy. I'm sure you've seen some over the years.
I have, man. They're really cool.
Definitely. Thanks so much, guys. I will enjoy the rest of the show, and I wish you both an excellent weekend, and congratulations on another successful event, Tommy.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know if I had those erasers as a kid, I don't know if I could have brought myself to use them as an eraser, but maybe as a kid, I wouldn't have cared. Maybe I would have. I don't know. But I'm looking at pictures right now of them, and I think, man, it'd be cool to have those still on the card, or at least out of the card.
Do not just that, but anything on the card or anything new. Not even just figures. Like, I would love to have like the old like Macho Madness bandana with the cardboard at the top, and like just anything from that era. That's what I said. You asked earlier, like that stuff that doesn't stay in the shop. It flies out of here. But that old merchandise, man, the old posters that you used to see in the middle section of your old WWF magazines, and the cups and the clamshell case, Coliseum videos, like all that stuff's just magic.
I like to think that somewhere there's a toy store, a factory, a warehouse that just has a couple boxes of this stuff untouched, and that someday I'll stumble across it. Wouldn't that be the dream, Tommy? You walk into like an abandoned building and there's just a box of old wrestling merchandise.
Imagine walking in an abandoned building and there was a whole warehouse filled of all the old WWF 80s merchandise. Man, that would be, from the shirts to everything else, that'd be incredible. But yeah, all that old stuff, man, like you can find a lot of that at the Wrestling Collector. So if you're ever in the New Jersey area, definitely come check us out.
And if you do stumble upon an abandoned building full of this stuff, make sure Tommy Firo is your first phone call.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Up next on the Wrestling Collector Slam Line, it's time for school to get into session. It's time for Professor Matt. Matt, good morning, brother.
Good morning, gentlemen. Jay, are the Twin Cities just a buzz right now with SummerSlam in town?
Listen, brother, it's
Oh yeah,
the
Jay, you go? Are you
party
going
of the
this weekend?
summer.
Are you going?
I'm not. Don't bring it up to my young son. He really
Ah,
wants to go, but
it's. You're probably busy with your job though, right?
yeah, that's what I'll tell the young guy. I'll say, Daddy's got to work, buddy. But
Well,
yeah, we
listen,
would love to go, but we are not.
listen. They just dropped some $25 tickets. You use the code.
Oh, maybe we will go then. Maybe the little guy and I'll caravan down. But yeah, it's gonna be cool.
So with respect to merchandise, certainly nostalgia is a hell of a drug, as I like to say, for people in our age group. You can't get enough of it. And I've said recently, I go, it's completely impractical, but if parents could buy two of every toy they ever buy their children and put one away in a storage locker somewhere, and then when that child turns 30 or 40, you just give them the key and say, enjoy. How amazing would that be? How impractical, but how amazing if you just had one of everything you ever had as a
Be
kid,
amazing.
brand new in box. That'd be incredible. So the rock and wrestling era. So I wanted to just quickly start by, let's define the rock and wrestling era. And to me, that era started. Well, MTV launched in 1981, and Vince Jr. bought the territory in 1982. So what you really have are two young, up and coming businesses that, let's be honest, they needed each other, and it was a match made in heaven for these two to get together. And that rock and wrestling era sort of started around that time, right? You can play with the months or the days or whatever, but somewhere after Vince Jr. buys the territory and he gets in contact with, he has his vision and gets in contact with MTV, and these two young companies see a synergy. And I think that runs 83, 84, 85, 86, and into 87. And for me, and I think this is subjective for everyone, to me, the rock and wrestling era ends with WrestleMania 3. And you sort of turn the page into the golden era, sort of taking over. And that's all subjective, but that's sort of how I define that rock and wrestling era, from the inception of the MTV and Vince buying the territory all the way through WrestleMania 3. The MTV brand was young, hip, new, and they were going after a similar demographic, maybe slightly older than Vince's demographic that he was going after was certainly kids, children, right? So it was a perfect synergy. And with Vince being, just as we now know, the marketing genius that he is, um, it was a perfect synergy. And of course, you had all these events, the Brawl to End It All and the War to Settle the Score and Cyndi Lauper, and all of that dovetailed into pop culture exposure. Saturday night's main event, right, being on network TV. You had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T on Saturday Night Live the night before WrestleMania 1, right? Celebrity involvement, Joe Piscopo and Billy Martin and Liberace and Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper, and on and on and on. And the rock and wrestling era really was the rise of Hulkamania. It was the birth of WrestleMania. You know, and it was pop culture explosion and the marketing bonanza, right? That happened with lunchboxes and magazines and action figures and bed sheets and sleeping bags and keychains and pencils and like you name it, it had a logo or a picture of Hulk Hogan or somebody on it. And I guess to answer your question more directly, Jay, I don't know exactly what the first piece of WWF merchandise I had was, but you know, I will tell you that as a elementary school child, one of the best times of year, and I'll be interested to see who else remembers this, was the Scholastic Book Fair. And the Scholastic Book Fair, right? You get a little catalog, and so you could preview, but then they'd wheel in these carts of books and all sorts of things to buy. And I always made a beeline for the wrestling stuff, sticker books, information books, anything with WWF on it. That's what I was going for at that Scholastic Book Fair. I had folders, right? Folders for your schoolwork and whatnot. So somewhere in that Scholastic Book Fair is likely my first bit of merch. Could have been an LJN figure. Hard to remember. It's been far too many decades ago now. But I sort of look at it as just two young upcoming businesses that just met at the absolute right time, and they both flourished because of it.
The Scholastic Book Fair is underrated as a memory. I don't know if a kid doesn't love the Scholastic Book Fair, and there was never an overwhelming amount of wrestling merchandise. But I was like you, man. I would beeline to it. I would find it, and that's the only thing I was spending my mom's money on.
Oh yeah.
Was wrestling books or bookmarks or folders from the Scholastic Book Fair.
Heck yeah. It's a memory that holds special meaning, a special time. And I'm with you. I just, that's what bookmarks you just triggered a memory, Jay. You triggered an internal memory. I definitely had the bookmarks and the folders and the pencils and the little square books full of stickers. And I had a sleeping bag of WWF and sheets. And like, I was, you want to buy bed sheets with WWF, Mom? Sure. Okay, great. Now I got WWF bed. It's the marketing opportunities of the rock and wrestling era are just insane.
Well said, man. I don't know about you guys, but I was the only kid in my elementary school that was fanatic about wrestling. And so like even my friends at this Classic Book Fair, if they found the wrestling book, they would hold it up and they would say, Jumpin' Jay. They didn't call me Jumpin' Jay, but they'd call me over because they knew that's what I wanted. That's the only thing that interested me.
Hey, tall guy, they got wrestling books.
Yeah. Hey, 8-foot fourth grader, come over here and pick up this book. Yeah, put the librarian down and grab this book.
What do you think about my definition of the timeline, right? So I sort of take it from Vince Jr. buying the promotion, and I'm cutting it off at WrestleMania 3, and I'm entering the golden era then. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. I think Hogan beating Andre is like the closing of one chapter, and now we're off to the races, and we are fully in that golden era. And so I got no issue with your timeline.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of that sort of question is it's subjective, and there's really no wrong answer because whatever any person wants to say is the end. If it's the 1986 Slammies, like Edwin's saying, then that's when it ends for him. But I think WrestleMania 3 is a nice little point in time. The Slam heard around the world ushers in, opens the door to that golden era. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for having me on. Great topic. Can't wait to listen to everybody else.
Thank you so much, Professor Matt. We're talking about back
Love that. I love that.
I love that
video. I love that. I'm sorry. I love that take that he just said. How it was Hulk Hogan, like the rock and wrestling era until Hogan body slammed Andre, and then it went into the golden era. I love that. I love that analogy. That was really, really good. That's why he's the professor.
That is why he's the professor. He takes us all to school in facts and fiction. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to keep the conversation rolling. It's time for the Maple Leaf. It's time for Rick from Canada. Rick, good morning, brother.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. My dog ate a squirrel on the weekend, so I've been cleaning up a lot of everything for the past 2 days. But yeah, things are good.
I always wonder what my dog would do if he caught a squirrel. I don't know. I'm hearing maybe you don't recommend it.
I don't think he caught it. I think he found a dead one, which is much worse.
Yeah, that'll turn in the pooch's belly for sure.
But I'll move off of that. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation about Scholastic Book Fairs.
Did you guys have those north of the border?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in a little tiny small town in Newfoundland, like a town of 1,000 people, and we had Scholastic Book Fairs out there. So I would say they were everywhere. It was one of my favorite days of the year. I just remember, like you guys, just going in and just being overwhelmed. Like I bought a lot of hockey books and stuff, of course, up here. But yeah, wrestling, hockey, a few little choose your own adventures and whatever else. But yeah, just gonna follow up on Matt and Brian there, I've talked about the cartoon quite a few times on the podcast because for me personally, it was my introduction to wrestling, and I feel it might have been for a lot of others, like because I was 5-6 years old when the cartoon came out, so I feel like a lot of people around that age kind of were introduced to all these characters on the cartoon, and then kind of moved into the actual wrestling. I think that's what kind of happened for me because I don't remember like WrestleMania 1, 2, WrestleMania 3 is probably where I start kind of my biggest memories. And I remember like even being upset about the Hogan Andre feud, a lot of it because I still pictured Andre as this lovable oaf from the cartoon, and I couldn't believe that Andre was this mean giant guy, because I pictured him as the cartoon guy. And a lot of my favorite characters still all came from the cartoon, right? Hawk, Junkyard Dog, Tito, Snuka, Hillbilly Jim. All these guys are just my foundation of my favorite wrestlers, and I feel it was really imprinted on me. And that was great marketing by WWF. You get these cartoon characters, kids are going to love these guys, and then you just follow them up through.
I think it's funny that you identified their personalities from the cartoon, and then when you tuned in to see them, you were like, "This is not the same guy. This is not the guy that." Yeah, I remember an Andre episode where he had trouble buying clothes in the cartoon, so he has to wear a tent, and he can't fit into a car, so he has to get like a bulldozer. And so I remember them having Andre as like this lovable, jolly fella.
I watched a couple episodes on the weekend, actually, and they're pretty funny. Even last night, I watched a couple more, and it's like, the Sheik is driving around in this dune buggy with the big Sheik hat on the back, and Roddy's driving Hot Rod, and Junkyard has a doghouse on the back. It's so so cartoonish and overdone. I also had so me and my brother both had lunch boxes with the cartoon, and my brother still has one back at home right now, like in his shed on a shelf, the original the lunchbox with the thermos in it and all.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love the live action bits too. Somebody mentioned them earlier, but the one I was watching last night was, Mean Gene trying to figure out how to use an ATM, and Bobby Heenan comes in and steals his money, and then the cop arrests Bobby Heenan. Everything was just so over the top, right? But one thing I did want to mention we haven't talked about, but the connection with James Avery, Uncle Phil, doing the voice of Junkyard Dog. So anytime I watch the cartoon now and I hear Junkyard Dog talking, I just picture James Avery and how much fun he must have had pre-Fresh Prince of Bel-Air doing the Junkyard Dog.
Didn't he also do the voice of Shredder in the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon?
He did. Yeah,
Man.
He did Shredder. So what great characters? Junkyard Dog, Shredder, Uncle Phil. What a classic guy. But yeah, that's all. I know there's still a lot of callers on, but yeah, and agree with Brian there. I think the Goonies are good enough. One of my favorite videos and songs, and even everything about that to me is my foundation of wrestling. I even mentioned, Jay, if you remember, when we talked about the factions, I was like, honorable mention to the Faces from Rock and Wrestling cartoon, one of my favorite factions as well. So
Hey, Rick, before you leave real quick, I wanted to say I think that was really smart what you said too about the marketing purposes of these good guys, and obviously also to boo the bad guys. But yes, man, it was a huge and super genius marketing idea, because you got all these kids now watching this cartoon, and they fall in love with Hulk Hogan and Hillbilly Jim and Andre the Giant and Tito and all the other characters, and then they're going to go to their mom and ask them and dad and ask them to buy them the figures and the T-shirts and the posters. So that's why I think that can work in 2026 too, because kids still watch cartoons, and there's a huge audience for kids for the WWE. So I think there's something there for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's still imprints you. Like the cartoon is pretty easy. Like, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? And the bad guys are stealing stuff and cheating, and the good guys are catching them. It's very clear who you root for, And then you start watching the actual wrestling. Yeah, Hulk Hogan is the good guy. Roddy Piper is a bad guy. So it was they translated pretty easily, but definitely 100% where I came into my love of wrestling and watching that old cartoon, and I still such nostalgia watching it on the weekend and stuff. It is a bit, the plots are a little bit thin, we'll say, but still just enjoyable to sit down, and just kind of watch it to kind of de-stress after a week. It was pretty fun.
For sure, man.
Well, thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Love chatting to you guys.
Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you so much for calling in. I think most of the episodes are now on YouTube. If you guys YouTube Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, I think you can watch almost all the episodes, which is fantastic. All right, looking ahead, where it looks like we're going from one Canadian to another. It's time for the guy that gave us this glorious topic for the week. It's time for the rookie. It's time for Edwin. Edwin, good morning, brother.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for letting me choose the topic this week. I really appreciate it.
Man, it seems like it's a smash
hit
with everybody.
Yeah, because I really love, even though I wasn't watching during this period, I just love this era so much, because it really is something that was so foundational and just so pop culture and representative of what that time period was. I did start watching a little bit later on, but I've always just loved this era. And really, when you look at the rock and wrestling connection, I think it really is something that the WWE even now is trying to sort of replicate with all these celebrities that they're bringing in. And like the difference is I think we talked it a little bit a couple weeks ago when we're talking about Cody Rhodes and Dusty Rhodes, and just how much more different we consume not just our media but like entertainment. And when Lauper appeared on Piper's Pit in June of 1984, the number one song on the Billboard charts was Time After Time. So realistically, they had the biggest star in music appear on wrestling television, and that is huge. And you kind of look what they're bringing now. They're bringing in like YouTubers and streamers, and it's not exactly Mr. T 1984 or 1985. If you kind of get what I'm saying, right?
I 100% agree. Yes, different type of celebrities nowadays.
Yeah, because like Mr. T was on TV like every week, and like I think 18 was like a top 3 rated show, 20 million people watching it every week. So you're not really going to get that same kind of celebrity who was just a household name, literally and figuratively. So, but when you kind of really start with the Rock Wrestling Connection, I think Brian was babyface was just right on the point. I would say it starts with the Richter Mula MTV match, and I do think that Wendy kind of gets overlooked because her run really wasn't that long. But in terms of just like elevating women's wrestling, like, I mean, she headlined Madison Square Garden. She was on the cover of like all the wrestling magazines and just was with Lauper on MTV. And she was just as big a star as in the wrestling industry that you could really get. And, before that, it was kind of just like women's wrestling was sort of, they wrestle each other in one night, and then in the next town, they'll be tag team partners. There's no real angle. And I could honestly say that Richter Mula angle with MTV was arguably the first real wrestling storyline for women in wrestling history, or at least the WWE, right?
It was the first one I think that really got mainstream attention and got people excited.
Yeah, it was like I think she just gets overlooked a lot, and I think she's really like a pioneer for the industry. And I do think that I would like to see her get more credit, but you kind of look at the cartoon, like what Lauper did also. I see a picture of Junkyard Dog. He was on ABC. I just saw this recently, where he was like on ABC American Bandstand, where it was kind of like a show where you have all these like young stars come and perform, and I think Janet Jackson was on there, and Michael Jackson and Jackson 5 and all these like big artists. Junkyard Dog actually performed his song for the wrestling album on that show, and Lauper was one of the she was doing her Mona Femme thing where she was kind of in disguise, and I think Rick Derringer was also playing bass or something in electric guitar, and Dave Wolf, Sydney's boyfriend, was playing electric keyboard, and JYD, he's lip syncing obviously, but it's crazy how outside the box they were back then. It really was, because he was performing, and it was a good song. Like, JYD's theme was always awesome. So have you ever seen that video of like JYD on American Bandstand? It was on ABC.
I've never seen it, but I'm looking up pictures right now because I'm trying to get a photo of it up on the YouTube screen. And yeah, he performed Grab Them Cakes on American Bandstand back in 1985. You got to give Vince
I did not
credit.
know that.
He was not afraid to try things. I love it.
Yeah, and it just was like they were changing the industry. Like they were getting it mainstream. I talked about last week Hogan using "Eye of the Tiger" for his theme, and Lauper, Wendy coming out to "Girls Just Want to Have Fun," and then the U.S. Express, Wyndham and Rotunda coming out to Bruce Springsteen. Like wrestling music was not even a thing like for the WWE. It was just Backlund or Snuka just going to the ring with like the crowd cheering them, and it's just one of these things where it just modernized and made it a bigger production. And I do want to talk a little bit about the Rock and Wrestling cartoon, where I really loved the show, and it holds a special place in my heart. I didn't watch it when it happened. I actually discovered it maybe a couple of years ago. Not a couple of years ago, but like maybe like years after it like went off the air. But man, it was just what a great idea for a show, like Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling. And I would really say that everyone who did their voices, some of them were pretty good, some of them weren't good. I would say James Avery, he was a phenomenal actor. Like just not even just in terms of the TV show, but like Fresh Prince, Uncle Phil, he was amazing. But the guy who did Piper's voice, Chase Adler, I think his name was not the greatest. Like, he didn't really nail Piper. He laughed way too much. Piper was over the top, but like he didn't really nail his voice. I thought Brad Garrett, who played like the tall guy on Everybody Loves Raymond. I never watched that show, but he was like the really like tall guy on that show. He did Hulk Hogan's voice. David Arquette's dad did Jimmy Snuka's voice. Tito's voice was kind of okay. Iron Sheik and everyone, like, it was just what a cast of characters. And honestly, one of my all-time favorite segments, and this is me kind of being a little bit more of a nerdy side, but on the very first Saturday Night's Main Event, there's a backstage segment which I think Lauper is holding like a birthday party for her mother. And I think JYD's there, Hogan's there, Wendy's there, Iron Sheik's there, Volkov's there, and pretty much like everybody like on that show were together in like this one segment. And I was like, this is kind of like the Rock and Wrestling cartoon in real life form. And maybe one day we might get a live action Rock and Wrestling cartoon or something. Like maybe like they'll just get all the people and they'll do like a movie or something, hopefully.
I think that would be fantastic. I love that idea.
That'd be awesome. And just one last point. The one thing I had about this show was, it started in 1985, right? And I think by the end of 1985, I think Snook was out of the company and Wendy was out of the company. And then you would see guys like Randy Savage do like appearances in like the cutscenes. And I think Orndorff was starting to get really popular. And who else was there? Like Bundy as well. So you had all these like new characters in the World Wrestling Federation. And, a lot of these people were also like leaving the company, like once again, like Wendy and Superfly. It was just, it did stick out that like, okay, this is kind of a little bit outdated in terms of like the characters, because, in 1986, like Randy Savage is like, probably this, like the second or third biggest star in the company. He's on the show, and same with Orndorff. It was just really hard to kind of like mimic what was going on in the WWF in real time in the cartoon.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Savage in the cartoon. I would love to have seen the Bulldogs in the cartoon. There's definitely people that were around this time frame that didn't get the cartoon version of them, which I think would have been cool to see.
Yeah, because I think the cutoff had to be like right after WrestleMania or something, because it just, those guys like were such a big part of the company. Like I think the first time we even saw the cartoon, I thought like Wendy was like Miss Elizabeth or something, but I think like overall it's just such a memorable era, and like we would not be talking about WrestleMania or Saturday Night's Main Event or Saturday Night Live or not Saturday Night Live, but like all these big productions and the action figures, whatever. It was not for this era. So I was on here for a bit longer than a lot of other people, but I just love this era so much, and thank you for letting me talk about it.
Well, thank you for bringing up this era, and what a fun topic it's been. People are absolutely loving it. And if you're keeping score at home, which I know the Professor Matt probably is, Brad Garrett, the brother on Everyone Loves Raymond, 3.5 inches taller than Damian Priest. So I know that's information that Matt will be happy to learn. Brad Garrett, big guy. Damian Priest, questionable. All right, we're going to keep the conversation rolling. We're talking all about that rock and wrestling connection. Up next on the Slam Line, it's time for the world's most dangerous caller. And Tommy, he was wondering where you were last week. It's time for Jason. Jason, good morning, brother.
Good morning, guys.
How are you doing today, sir? Jason, can you hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
I do hear you. There's a little bit of an echo. Do you have the YouTube page going in your background?
My background, no.
Oh, all right. I just heard a little bit of an echo.
Window down.
Hear a little bit of echo. Tommy, you there?
Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you, but I can also hear myself. There is a definite echo happening.
Hey, if you don't roll up your window while you're driving, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Is that what it is? Is it the window down?
My fan's running. That's probably what you're hearing.
Well, you gotta cut the fan.
Turn your damn fan off.
We're talking to Darth Vader.
Hold on.
Luke.
Listen, sorry, everyone out there in this entire world that we have to put our show on pause right now while the world's most dangerous caller turns his fan off.
Now do you hear me good?
I hear you. I still hear an echo. I don't know if anybody else hears an echo. You can comment echo if you hear it, then we can do something about
I
it.
might have to wake up Tommy Sheik for this.
Professor Matt says he hears the echo. I'm going to mute Jason. I think the echo goes away. Jason, I think it's a connection on your point. See if you can square that away. We'll jump to the next caller. Up next, I can still hear the echo. Maybe it wasn't Jason.
Maybe it's you.
Is it me? Well, I'll let you and Jason talk while I check my stuff.
Well, hold on now. This is going to be the biggest turn ever, where you cut off poor world's most dangerous caller, throw the heat on him, but you're the one that's with the echo.
Hello. I don't
Hello?
know what's going on. We're going to go to the next caller. We'll see if it gets better inside the firehouse. It's time for firefighter Brian. Brian, good morning, brother.
Well, I think we might have extinguished all the echoes because I don't hear you echoing anymore.
And I don't hear it anymore either, so I don't think it
It
was
was
me.
him. It was him, Jay. You were right.
All right.
Might
That's
have
okay.
been.
I'm sorry.
That's it. Takes a big man to say he's sorry. I forgive you, Tom. I wasn't upset. I could have been my end. I'm the one that was playing WrestleMania at the opening of the show because I couldn't hear it. So, Brian, how are you doing?
I can't complain, guys. How's everything with you?
Doing very well, man. We're talking about the Rock and Wrestling Collection. Could the day get any better? I don't know.
Absolutely not. And Tommy, very quick question: is this your first year doing Wildwood two for 2 different nights in the summer?
Since the new conventioner, yes. Back in the late '90s, I would run every summer in the summer down there. But yes, this is the second time, and super excited.
Very good. Good for you. And I just want to echo what you said, Tommy, about the the WWE radio. Now, this is not their first rodeo trying. This isn't their first time trying radio. In the mid '90s, I would say around the New Generation era, around like the Bret Owen feud, they had something called Radio WWF, and it didn't last long. And if you watch certain pay-per-views around that time, I think it was 93, 94 Survivor Series, they had it. They would have two guys, usually McMahon and Heenan on TV, and Monsoon and Jim Ross on radio. So they did have, this is not their first rodeo trying this format, but it's definitely on a much bigger scale, a much better scale. They have better resources, better technology. And, LaGreca did a show. He did a whole segment killing those dirt sheet writers who have been trashing him for selling out.
It was
Listen, I don't.
awesome.
You heard it? Yep. Hey, listen, I did not. You cannot consider anybody a sellout for going to WWE. It's where it's at right now. It's where everything is at, especially the money, which, as we all know, is the bottom line. And yet, yeah, I mean, listen, it was good because they talked about everything wrestling, AEW, TNA, Indies, Japan. They that part sucks. However, if you listen to the show, it's the same. And the whole all the shows are still there.
Hey,
It's all
Brian, let
yeah,
me jump in real quick.
sure.
In like you just said about Indy and stuff like that. Like even a month back, well, right before my last '80s wrestling con, they had me on Busted Open, and I did a whole segment with Bully and LaGreca about '80s wrestling con. I'm sure that's not going to happen again now that's under the WWE umbrella. And you don't see
Right.
me over here calling Davis sellout. Right? Like, I'm happy
No,
for him. It's awesome. You know.
listen, this is only going to do, at the end of the day, this is only going to help everybody. And that's what sucks about it. Okay. I won't argue it, but other than that, it's the same show. They torched the living daylights out of the opening segment of Raw with Lesnar and Femi, and rightfully so. It made absolutely no sense. And they crucified the Danhausen segment, which I didn't think was that bad. But no, it's listen. I don't blame them. I just if they're going to you see TV and radio, you can't call TV the same way you do radio. If they're going to do pay-per-views and even Raws or whatever on radio, you should have radio announced like in separate teams because when you're doing radio, you have to help the listener see the game, see the match, see whatever they're calling. So I just hope they do that. But other than that, everything is the same. They are not kissing any ass. And remember, everybody, this is a partnership. It's not a buyout. It's a partnership. So they are still free to torch the company, at least for now. Now, listen, if you start seeing I have a hard time thinking you will not see WWE's fingerprints all over this, but so far they've proven me wrong, and it's still
LaGreca's cursing the storm up even more than ever.
Exactly. So listen, it's like I said, it's the same shows, and definitely worth listening when you can. And speaking of a segment that wasn't believable on Lesnar Femi, nobody's brought this up yet. I just want to say, Tony Atlas was absolutely magnificent last week. One of the best segments in the history of this podcast. I always loved Tony Atlas. I always loved listening to him talk about wrestling. That's a
He's
guy
great.
who he should have his own podcast. Because he's been through so much over the years to talk about his career and his opinions on wrestling, and just he would be a great podcast. Whether it's you, Jay, you, Tommy, Toto with Tom, hell, I'll friggin' do it. Anybody that could get a podcast with him, I would listen to it. He's just a great wrestling mind. Now, Rock and Wrestling Connection. Now, this is really surprised we've never talked about this in all the years you've been doing this show because Rock and Wrestling brought a lot of us, meaning this community, into wrestling. And it brought a lot of fans into wrestling that are still around today or whose children or even grandchildren are now watching wrestling. So it was very instrumental in bringing in viewers. And this was one of if not the first real example of McMahon's vision to expand. I liken it to Kiss, the band. Kiss always said, Kiss never sold out. Kiss never sold out. They always said, we wanted to put our name, our likeness, our brand, whatever, on everything possible. We want to the more we can get our name out there, the more people will know us, and the more they will come to us, the more money they will spend. And that Kiss has put that on everything from condoms to caskets. Okay, now all the big four sports teams have caskets. Okay, Kiss started that. Okay, Vince McMahon before the Rock and Wrestling. Yeah, you had shirts, you had like the little billboard posters, like you have Tommy promoting your events. You didn't have merchandise like you did when the Rock and Wrestling Connection took off. You had everything from wrestling figures to bed sheets. We named it all to friggin' erasers, for crying out loud. So that was a big one. Now, as far as the show goes, okay, like Faye said, it doesn't hold up today. The segment, what I am really glad for you, thank God for YouTube. Years ago, when DVDs were starting to get big, they did the Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling show, and they even put it on the network, but they didn't have the vignettes with the human wrestlers. Those were gold. They were cheap comedy, cheaply produced, but they were funny. And you know what? It got the kids who were just watching the cartoon to actually watch the wrestling show. So there were so many good things about that. And Gene Okerlund was in almost, if not all of those vignettes. Gene Okerlund, nobody like him. And I'll just say, if there was a Mount Rushmore for Rock and Wrestling Connection, I think it's pretty easy. Of course, Cyndi Lauper, of course, Lou Albano, Hulk Hogan, who's pretty much the Mount Rushmore in anything 80s wrestling, and Wendy Richter. And somebody brought up Wendy before. Listen, Wendy. It's easy to forget just how big Wendy was. To this day, I've never seen a female wrestler in the WWE or WWF, whatever, do what she did. She was becoming as popular as Hulk Hogan. And then they had that contract dispute and it all went to hell. But so that's my Mount Rushmore. And it was a great time for this for the rest of it remains one of my all-time favorite eras. And 87 remains one of my all-time favorite years in wrestling.
Do you know? I know you had, and I think you still have quite the collection of wrestling merchandise. Do you remember, Brian, like the first piece that you got your hands on?
I'm pretty sure Hogan was my first figure, but you know what, Jay? It made Chris. But my birthday's December 7th, so just a few weeks later is Christmas. So they would do the shopping forever, and my brother's on December 10th, so they would do what the shopping, kill three birds with one stone with the shopping. It made it very easy for my parents to shop for me. It made, if my grandparents or whoever say, what does Brian like? What should I get Brian? Just if it has wrestling on it, get it. If he has it, we'll return it and get him something else. It made things easy. But I had the whole first and second series. I forget what else. I had the ring. It was now by the time I got into wrestling, I couldn't find the wrestling album anymore. However, I did find I did have the Pile Driver album. Okay. They never released it on CD, but I'll never forget this. This was after, I think between Christmas and New Year's of 1998, and I was going we were at Tower Records. Remember that? Tower Records, and I see the wrestling album on CD. And I immediately said, okay, I don't care what my budget is, whatever, I am getting this. And it's a time capsule. Listen, does it stand the test of time? Not really. But for people that were there like us, you enjoy listening to some of the songs once in a while. And it was so that's and the Slammies. We haven't brought up the Slam. We could do a whole show on the Slammies. So but yeah, so it was a crazy time, and I'm glad people brought up James Avery, may he rest in paradise, and Brad Garrett, who at the time he was a voice actor and struggling comedian who had a lot of failed pilots, failed sitcoms, and then went on to win an Emmy at for Everybody Loves Raymond. So yeah, very 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 interesting the story behind the rock and wrestling era.
Well, Brian, before we let you go, James
Yes.
Avery, which
Yes.
of his rank these three characters for me is in terms of pop culture significance? Uncle
Yes.
Phil, Junkyard Dog, Shredder.
Okay. Uncle Phil, Junkyard Dog Shred. Well, listen, number one is Uncle Phil. No question. Uncle Phil. I got to put JYD, I love you, rest in paradise, but I got to put him at number three. Shredder, more people know Shredder. And so I'd say Uncle Phil, Shredder, JYD. And I just, on my way out, I just want to suggest something for next week, unless you have a guest or something. So I don't know if you guys have been watching the new season of Dark Side of the Ring. I have. It is absolutely terrific. It's all on YouTube. The episode, it airs every Tuesday at like 8 or 9, and then immediately thereafter, it's on YouTube. I saw they did a three-parter of TNA, which is sensational. Last week they did the match of Samoa Joe and Necro Butcher, which is excellent if you haven't seen it. Last night they did the Big Boss Man, and I didn't realize how much meat was on the bones of the story of that guy. I don't think you've done a Big Boss Man show, and he's a pretty big wrestling icon. Want to do a Big Boss Man show next week?
Let's do it. Serving hard time next week. We might have talked about Bossman, but it's been a long, long time if we have. And so I'm down
if
for
you
a
did,
little.
I don't remember it.
Well,
Yeah,
then it's
so
time to do it again, brother.
So let's go down to Cobb County, Georgia, and serve the law and order. So with that, hey guys, great talk as always, great show, and I will hopefully talk to you guys next week when we talk about one of the best talents of his time, who was in some of the worst wrestling television ever put on television. So here we go. All right, have a good one, guys. God bless.
Hey, you two, firefighter, thank you so much. Well, that was a fun trip down memory lane this morning. The Rock and Wrestling Connection wasn't just another chapter in wrestling history. It was a cultural phenomenon. From a few incredible years, wrestling broke out of the arena, got into our living rooms, our Saturday mornings, our record players, our toy boxes, and everything else. What a fun conversation. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Next week, we're road tripping to Cobb County, Georgia, where we'll all be serving a little hard time. Talking Big Boss Man next week. Everybody have a great week, and we'll catch you then.